Welcome to Defenders TV Podcast, episode 67, looking at Daredevil Season 2, episode 11, 380. Welcome back, Defenders. This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 67, where we're going to be sitting here in the sun chatting about Season 2, episode 11 of Daredevil. I'm one of your hosts, Chris.
I'm one of your other hosts, John.
And I'm your final host for this week, Derek. Yes, a sunny day in Ireland.
I know, It's so weird. And we're inside podcasting. I think this is the epitome of people. Go outside and podcast.
The light. I can't stand the light.
It'd be way too echoey as well, way too loud. Too many noises. So we're in a darkened room, curtains closed, doors closed, hoping to be able to get out for the afternoon in the sunshine. But yeah.
This is how Derek keeps me so that I don't watch Penny Dreadful or any of these other shows.
3 more weeks, John. 3 more weeks, and then you get back to your own shows. But
you can only watch your own stuff when we're finished everything else.
Exactly.
If anyone's listening, help me.
But, guys, I think we need to kick off with some of the big news that came out this week. A bad week for Marvel.
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Please elaborate better.
I know, a big bad week for Marvel after the huge success of Civil War and obviously the success of the Netflix series. I think everybody thinks that Marvel is untouchable in terms of ratings on TV shows and that kind of stuff. But 2 bits of bad news that came out this week that I think we should have a little moment to talk about. First off is the spin-off from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. featuring Bobby Morse and Hunter, her boyfriend or her husband, from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Marvel's Most Wanted was supposed to go into production for ABC as the 3rd Marvel TV show, airing this fall, and unfortunately has not been picked up. So the characters of Hunter and Bobby have left Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Will they return if now that their show has been cancelled?
I'd say so.
They did that big send off in that wonderful episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when they left, and
that's true.
It was kind of closing down the fact that the agents wouldn't ever see them again. So it's going to be pretty difficult to get them back in. I'm really hoping. They were 2 of my favorite characters, and that's why I was so excited to see Marvel's Most Wanted. So I'm really hoping they're going to be able to write them back into next season.
Yeah, it's a real shame. I mean, you wonder how that process works, where essentially they're leaving Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to what they think go on to a new show that probably maybe in their own mind could have been confirmed already in their heads. At least I thought it was an absolute runner. I thought this was going to happen. I certainly didn't expect this. And now they find themselves essentially out of a job. I mean, acting is such a tough trade, I think.
Isn't it?
I mean, really, really strange decision. So yeah, it's a shame.
As I say, especially for 2 of the most popular characters on the show when they were introduced last season. Mockingbird, obviously, is a comic book character. Hunter, a brand new character, but he really made a stamp on the show. Really enjoyed his interaction with the characters. Real that kind of funny Brit, not willing to take any kind of instruction from his bosses. Really enjoyed having him on the show, I must say. I do love the funny Brits, obviously.
Sorry, I was just going to say you had him on the show. Hey!
Yay, I'm a funny Brit.
So John's going to spin off, do his own podcast about Penny Dreadful, and then we're going to cut him from this show.
I'm going to be the funny Brit. Mm-hmm. It'll be the funny Brit. That'll be the podcast.
Does that make you Mockingbird?
Yes. Or Hunter. Probably more likely.
No, Mockingbird, definitely.
I'm the other thing is to remember is there's still Damage Inc. that is up in the air now as well.
Oh, Damage Control. That's right. The half-hour comedy show from Marvel. Yeah. That's a pretty interesting one as well, because DC are also doing their half-hour spin-off. Powerless. That's right. Which sounds like a similar premise, except it's not based in the comics universe. There's apparently no comic book characters in it. So interesting to see if ABC will make a decision on that. I haven't heard anything at all during the reports this week of the upfronts for the fall season. So maybe Damage Control was always intended to be something for next year. But definitely no mention of it in all the reports that came out.
That's what got me kind of going, okay, so they've renewed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yay.
Oh, absolutely. That's quite a while ago, actually.
Yeah. We've now then lost out on this Marvel's Most Wanted. So they'll either bring the characters back or they'll kill them off spectacularly.
Yeah, they have to do something with them. They can't just leave them gone. I'm really hoping not, anyway. I have a feeling, and we know, actually, sorry, I know no spoilers for who it is, but we know we're going to lose one of the major characters this season. As we get to the season finale, we're going to lose a major character. That's the second half of the season has all been building up to the death of a major character on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So losing one plus
Death
Hunter
in
and
space.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but no, we never saw the person die.
That's true, but it's been confirmed that there will be one person going, and we will see them die in the finale. So losing those two.
It's another one again. It's just like, he's dead, he's not dead.
Yeah.
It's kind of known who the person is that's going to go, but I'm definitely not going to spoil it for anybody. I haven't seen it, can't confirm it, but we kind of know who's going.
It's like Lost in Space, but forever.
That's right. But anyway, losing those two characters, Bobby and Hunter, plus one of the other major characters, would be a big hit for a show that's going into its 4th season. It's very likely that we'll see Hunter and Bobby come back, maybe for the funeral of the character that's going to be lost, and then they come back and join S.H.I.E.L.D. potentially. But anyway, let's skip on from that news onto the even sadder news, particularly for our podcast show that we've been covering for the last 2 years, Agent Carter. All three of us have podcasted about that show and really, really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, it's been confirmed by ABC that they're not picking up the show for a season 3. So I think the first comment I saw about it on Twitter, which was probably the saddest comment I've seen, they've made Peggy Carter die twice in a week.
No.
I shouldn't laugh there.
Damn.
That's quite funny.
But it's good.
That's comedy timing.
Oh, that was.
It is definitely R.I.P. Peggy Carter and R.I.P. Agent Carter.
And R.I.P. Agent Carter on Defenders TV podcast as well. Yeah, we talked about it on our last podcast, which was recorded 1 hour before the announcement was made.
Yeah.
And we all had a discussion about it. We all wanted to see a season 3. We all knew there was potential. I know, Chris, you were a little bit less positive that it was going to happen.
No,
There was no good news coming out over the last month. There was nothing giving any kind of indication that we would be getting a season 3. So I can understand where
that was basically where my head is at. I'm sad to see it go. I did enjoy the series. Mm-hmm. I think where the ratings did decline as the season went on. That's never a good sign. Mm-hmm. And then additionally, what you had is. They basically in the movie told you how it ended. That's the thing. Unfortunately, there's 40 years, 60 to 40 years of what happened in between. Mm-hmm. But I'd say this came from also a part of like, well, they just killed her off in the movie. It's not like they're gonna keep her coming around. They're not gonna kind of try and pull her back. And then also, Haley Atwell has the other ABC show.
Conviction, yeah. Great news for Haley Atwell, and I think we mentioned it during the podcast that ABC were very much saying yes, she's lead on that show, but it doesn't preclude doing an 8-episode series for Agent Carter. If they wanted to bring it back, there shouldn't have been any problem with bringing her back. But yeah, there's a lot of movement. I think Tara Butters and Michelle Fazekas, who are the showrunners for the show, also got a new show themselves as well. That had happened about 3 or 4 months ago. So again, being a showrunner for 2 different shows could have been quite difficult. It's a sad moment really to lose Agent Carter as a
absolutely.
TV show. There is a petition that started to get it moved on to Netflix, because obviously all of these shows are produced by ABC, so exactly the same production company. Netflix would just be the distributor, just like they are for Daredevil and for all of the shows that we cover. So that, I think that kicked off and got about 7,000 signatures in 4 hours. So at least there's some good push from the fan base. I know our listeners were over on our Facebook group, have shared their thoughts about it as well. So I'm just going to read a couple of those thoughts, if that's cool with you guys.
Of course.
Yeah. So this is over on our Facebook page or Facebook group. Just go to facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast. Claire Laffer from the Defenders podcast, who did cover one of the episodes of Agent Carter with us. She says, that sound is my heart breaking. Oh, poor Claire.
Absolutely.
Ronaldo says, yeah, it's real sad, especially since the last we saw of Peggy was her funeral 2 in Civil War. Makes for her adventures between end of season 2 and Civil War eerily silent.
Absolutely. Like, there was so much more Cold War stuff that could have happened here with Agent Carter, but sadly, probably not to be.
Mm-hmm. Preston J. Jarvis says, someone call Netflix. They know how to marvel.
Well, that's true. It could be a lot more bloody.
Absolutely. I hope not.
Think Dottie in the Marvel Netflix world. I mean, she would be like, she would give the Punisher a run for his money.
Very, very true. I'm kind of hopeful that they keep this on board. One of the things I really loved about Agent Carter is that it does place itself firmly in the family orientated adventure show, which Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. has moved away from. I clearly wouldn't sit down with anybody under 18 for Daredevil at this stage. We'll talk about it later in the episode. But yeah, I kind of like the idea that they may have a family drama kind of / comedy, side of the S.H.I.E.L.D. world, of the Marvel world. It's always the S.H.I.E.L.D. world to me. But yeah, interesting. And Cale Hensley makes the same point that I did, which says, ironically, the Netflix shows still fall under the Marvel television umbrella. So it is the same people. Dave Horrocks says terrible news. Very heartbroken about that. Woo Kim says, guys, do not count Miss Carter out yet. The nice thing about this show, one could pick it up a year from now on Netflix and it wouldn't miss a beat. I think I mentioned in last week's podcast that there is a possibility that you could do this show in a year's time, 3 years time, 5 years time, and just pick up with Agent Carter and Jarvis in the 70s or in the 60s. You know, it's a real possibility. They have that whole breadth of history. We know Peggy was still an active member of S.H.I.E.L.D. right up until the 80s. I'd love to see the bit that was kind of promised to us that we've missed in the first 2 seasons of Agent Carter is the development into S.H.I.E.L.D. from the SSR. We've never seen any of that mentioned, where the actual setup of S.H.I.E.L.D. is. We saw it in the little tease, the one shot that was on the Blu-ray for Iron Man 3, I think. We saw a little bit of the development of the creation of S.H.I.E.L.D. by Howard Stark, but it's never gotten to that point. I was kind of hoping that we get a little bit of the history of S.H.I.E.L.D., but that's an option.
Yeah, no, I mean, it'd be great to see Peggy Carter in pick-your-nose collars and 70s flares. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Maybe moving into a nice old sort of leg warmers and perm hairdo for the 80s.
Absolutely. One final way that Peggy could survive is provided by Cale Hensley. He says, what we really need now is for Marvel to get the rights to Fantastic Four back. They need to set the first movie or 2 in the 60s and have her involved in those movies. Then have the Fantastic Four disappear for 50 plus years and mysteriously reappear in modern New York. Time gem, anyone?
Oh, cool.
Okay, that's an interesting idea.
There you go.
I never thought about that. I'm like, okay. But
that's very cool.
As of recording, they are talking about a second Fantastic Four with the same cast as Fantastic Four 1.
That's right. Simon Kinberg, who was the executive producer for all the X-Men movies, the new ones, the kind of rebooted version of the universe, has said he'd really love to see a brighter, funnier Fantastic Four, and totally admits exactly what we said on our podcast about the terrible Fantastic Four, that the big problem was that they tried to make it dark and didn't trust in the bright, funny elements of characters as fantastic as the Fantastic Four, and they didn't trust in the comic book versions of those and tried to create a darker version of it. That was the problem, wasn't it? There definitely wasn't the cast. We all said the cast was fantastic in that movie.
Yeah, it wasn't the cast. I don't even think it was the darkness. I really liked that. It was just that it was incoherent.
That's true.
It was the structure. It was what seems to be pretty sort of ropey jumping around in the edits, or I suppose what we were debating and thinking about was that it lost a huge chunk of the exposition or storyline in the edit, whether it was from the studio or whether it was from the editor and the director. Mm-hmm. But I mean, for me, I actually really liked the darkness, because I'm not necessarily a big fan of Fantastic Four. I love that it was going into sort of that disfigurement horror kind of side of things. I thought it was really good. But I'm not a big Fantastic Four, so I have no particular allegiance to how these characters should be portrayed, if I'm honest. Mm-hmm. But you can find that out, of course, on our podcast of Fantastique Four.
Fanforstic, wasn't it?
Fanforstic. I think it's in 1602 that they are the Fantastique Four, aren't they?
Neil Gaiman's world. I love that one.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a great period piece to see turned into a movie. I would love that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One of my favorite comic book authors. So yeah.
But, I think, you can find our thoughts on the Fantastic Four, as well as any of the other, MCU films, as well as Agent Carter season 1 and 2. You can just go to defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes, or you can pick it up on any other good podcast catcher. Just search Defenders TV Podcast. Please subscribe, leave a review, and our lovely, funny British and funny Irish tones will soothe your earlobes.
Absolutely, until we cut John from the podcast.
Yes. Just one final note on this. I'm going to be the bearer of probably bad news. I don't think Netflix are going to pick up Agent Carter.
I agree.
It's not in the tone of what they have. They have a sicker set of a universe that they're building in the Netflix universe of the MCU. The Netflix, they're building Hell's Kitchen, like literally. They're building that one kind of suburb where that's very extra violent, where you won't, probably that's why we won't get crossover for a lot of the characters over to the MCU kind of film side. And then...
While I do agree with you, Chris...
Yep.
One thing I have learned about Netflix is they are totally unpredictable. They've talked specifically about things like looking for very niche shows just to keep that person with their subscription for the year on board. So if the cost is right, you know what? They have deep pockets, and I wouldn't be shocked if we did see it picked up. But unfortunately, it is the first place people go when their shows have been cancelled. There were I think ABC cancelled 9 shows this week, including things like Castle, which has been going for 8 seasons. They cancelled.
That's because Nathan Fillion's going to work for DC. Or sorry, he's actually going to work for Marvel as well.
He's going to be on Guardians of the Galaxy too, yeah.
I think Agent Carter should go to BBC.
I think it would actually work perfectly.
Oh my god, that would. Now, that I'd enjoy. BBC America can put it out, produce it. It would be very, Okay, yeah.
But I love the fact that instantly the response from the fans has been huge. I think there's a very dedicated fan base to Agent Carter, and I count myself among them. I count ourselves among the fan base
Absolutely.
of Agent Carter. We really enjoyed the show, apart from some little misgivings towards the end of the season. I think overall, season 2 was equally as good as season 1, and had some great moments in it. And I'd love to see those characters back. The fact that we may not see Dottie ever again in any form of TV show or movie because she is specifically for Agent Carter and in that time period, that's such a pity for me. It's such a shame to lose that great character from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as well as Peggy and Jarvis, you know, all the rest of them. Really, really good. But a fond farewell to Agent Carter. I think with that, it's time to get on to this episode of Daredevil.
It is.
So, this episode of Daredevil, Season 2, Episode 11, 380, was directed by Steven Surgic, one of the main directors on Daredevil for Season 1 and 2. Done a bunch of episodes. It was written by Mark Verheiden. We have mentioned him in the past. He was the writer of The Mask and Time Cop for us
sweet
80s and 90s movies fans.
Sweet. And love Time Cop. Love The Mask.
I know you do. And he also wrote 2 episodes of Constantine, which I think we talked about last time. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us for this episode with your synopsis?
Sure. After the attack on the hospital by the Hand and the rescue of the children, strange scars on one of the dead ninjas leads to uncomfortable questions that the hospital board are not prepared to answer. As they cover up the events of the ninja assault, Claire Temple is compelled to quit Metro General. Also in Hell's Kitchen, Karen Page is concealing the truth from the police about her involvement with Frank Castle. As she starts to work with Frank to track down the mysterious Blacksmith, she soon learns how different their agendas are and how ruthless the Punisher can truly be. Elsewhere, Daredevil finds himself collaborating with a very unexpected ally, as he too is set on the trail of uncovering the Blacksmith. Sent on the path to Pier 81 and a ship containing a consignment of the Blacksmith's heroin, the Punisher and Daredevil cross paths once again as the Blacksmith's men arrive to deal with Frank Castle for one last time. In another part of town, the time is now right for the Hand's prophecy to be realized from the urn, as the blood of the children will lead to resurrection and rebirth. Slicey wrists.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That's a creepy moment in this episode. Yeah, another episode with tons of stuff happening in here.
Completely. A lot of stuff.
The way we cover our episodes, as always, is we take 5 points each about the episode. Some of them may cross over, but generally they are good, bad, maybe indifferent about the episode. And by talking through them, we hope to cover all the points about the episode. Chris, do you want to kick us off with your first point about this episode?
I'd love to. Okay, this was a busy episode with the hunt for the elusive Blacksmith consuming both Daredevil and Punisher. But go with me on this. This is where I'm going down the rabbit hole a bit.
Okay.
What if the man they're both searching for and the man what if the Blacksmith is Stick?
You've taken one of my points as well. You've got sweet revenge.
For the listeners out there, we're actually not in the same room today, so this is even better. I didn't even see his notes and I got it. Okay, we may be way off here, and this is the great way, because we podcast the way we do, we don't get to go on. But I feel that scene where he was sharpening the sword with the Blacksmith whetstone, I was like, oh, and they even made it black oil.
I like that.
That was like going, okay, come on, like you're like that was pouring it on. That would be nice fan service. It'd be a nice idea, but then there's more to it than that. We have 2 episodes left now. The identity of the Blacksmith cannot be just come from left in field and introduce a brand new character. Like, you can't really do that at this point in time.
Unless we were right last week and that new character is Bullseye.
But then now Bullseye has to become the Blacksmith.
That was one of the options
that we
had on the table last week.
Yeah.
No, I was just thinking the Gladiator.
He's Marvin.
Yeah, I know he's not a blacksmith. But he works with metals and all this kind of stuff to do all the armor for Daredevil, for Wilson Fisk's suits. You know, in his workshop, he has a load of other stuff around there. It's not like he's a tailor, is what I'm saying.
Stiltman is the blacksmith.
Yeah, no, I see where you're
Maybe
going.
not, though.
But his character in this show is a bit simple.
Yeah,
unless
true.
it's an act. Okay, this is where we go down even more rabbit hole. It could be him. The whole thing could be an act.
It was just one thing that just quickly came to mind when I was thinking blacksmiths, workshops, all this kind of, like what you said with Stick. I thought maybe it's the Gladiator, Melvin.
Because
I certainly love these theories, I must say.
I think it has to be Stick. It just because they kind of the whetstone could be a good idea, but they need someone who's going to tie the whole universe, the whole thread together, because that's something we haven't got.
True, and I get you. I think the one thing that kind of threw me off the trail of that, because I did think exactly that, especially when he was sitting there. But the one thing that threw me off, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit later on. Sorry, but it's Madame Gao's admission that the heroine that the blacksmith is bringing into New York is the purest she's ever seen, and I don't see that as being something that Stick would do. Even we're probably looking to see the leader of the Hand being the blacksmith. I thought that's where it was leading to. Stick is in opposition to the Hand. It seems like it would be an odd decision. I'm kind of thinking who's in charge of Nobu. Is Nobu the blacksmith? Is the way I'm leaning towards.
Okay,
it could be,
yeah. Oh,
there's a whole range of stuff here, definitely.
Just because Nobu seems to be in charge, and again, he was resurrected, so I presume that decision isn't made lightly. So was he resurrected as the protector of the leader of the Hand, or is he the leader of the Hand? I just don't know just yet.
But weren't they all in cahoots together, the Yakuza in season 1 with Nobu as the head, or the Hand, as they obviously didn't know they were the Hand at the time, but with Madame Gao, all centered around Wilson Fisk. So I wonder, would it make sense then that within there's people betraying one another? Maybe so.
Yeah, potentially.
Actually, just quickly, this is just a little funny moment for me. Talking of going down the rabbit hole, there is the moment where Stick is stood in his sort of I don't know what you would call it, but I suppose training
dojo.
Room. And he's got all of the weapons on the wall. It looked like he had rabbit ears.
Yeah.
There's 2 kind of hatchets sticking out of his head. And they look like rabbit ears. And I just thought Donnie Darko. And even when he goes, I'm all ears, I'm going,
yes,
he's all
you
rabbit
are.
ears. I think it happens twice towards the end, where it looks like he's got these kind of like floppy, lethal rabbit ears made out of hatchet blades.
Nice.
I thought it was brilliant.
Talk about going down the rabbit hole.
That is the rabbit hole.
John, do you want to take us away from the rabbit hole and give us your first point?
Yeah, coming out of the rabbit hole, back on above ground, is I loved the 2 strong ladies in this episode, actually. Claire Temple and Karen. I actually really enjoyed them, and primarily for their confrontation of Matt. and really just telling him to, quite frankly, shut up and stop believing his own bullshit. You have Claire saying, it's not your city anymore, where he's trying to always say, I have to do this. She really lets him have it, when he really just doesn't listen to her. And I love that she's had enough here. And I think on another side, just her sort of moral and ethical center, in that she's not going to deal with any of the bullshit of the hospital boards. It just ties in nicely there. This is a really strong, focused woman here.
Absolutely.
And I loved how she really just confronts Matt after the attack and the aftermath from the ninja assault, really. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, definitely. I love her line to him saying the one thing about martyrs is that the best ones are all dead. Really nice little, cutting Matt down to size there about his impression that he has to be the protector of the city. I think we talked about that about episode 6 or 7. We were getting to the point we were getting pretty sick of Matt saying,
my city.
This is my city.
Yeah.
There's millions of people that live in that city. He can't protect them all, but he feels he can.
And it's a real nice thread from the previous episode from Claire Temple as well, where she really confronts him on top of the hospital roof. So I really like this from Claire. And I think then with Karen, and it all just adds to just the disintegrating relationships that Matt Murdock is having with everyone, is Karen, where she says, I'm not yours to protect. And it is, quite frankly, just a great line from her. It's like, will you stop trying to essentially treat me like a child? And I love this second sort of put down by another real focused, determined lady in this show to Matt. He really does get it. I don't want your help, she goes. Lying to the police is my problem, not yours. And it's really just a great way of undermining Matt's own confidence. I mean, you have him later on in this episode, which is a really big point, where he debates about crossing over the line from his code of not killing with the Punisher. He is at a low ebb. All these kind of disintegrating friendships that he used to have with Foggy, with both Karen and Claire, all of them are really sort of in trouble. And he's becoming more isolated. He's becoming a loner, like Frank Castle. And there's that moment aboard the ship where he is actually considering and debating that his way is not the right way. He's desperate. And I love that these probably feed into that. But for me, that they were real highlights of this episode. Yeah,
what kind of stood out to me was when we talked about last week's episode, I think some of the feedback from David Wang about whether we'd be going into the Born Again arc where Wilson Fisk takes apart the life of Matt Murdock. It's really interesting. Doesn't look like he's going to need any help from Fisk.
No, it's like one episode done. There you go.
Absolutely. I know he's not costumed in the episode when he's speaking to Claire Temple, but she's speaking to him as Daredevil and criticizing the way that he's trying to protect the city. And then, as you mentioned, John, you have Karen criticizing the way that Matt Murdock is trying to protect her constantly. She still doesn't know that he's Daredevil. So both sides of his life are getting criticism from the only two friends he has left in here. There's just a tiny little touch, and I know we're going to probably again talk about this a little later on, but a tiny little touch from Foggy who's lying in his bed after being shot in the last episode, lying in his bed, and just asks, "Did you see Matt outside?" As if he's expecting Matt to still arrive and still be there for them. So that's another relationship that Matt's torn apart on his own by not taking Claire's advice. So just thought that was a nice little touch. And again,
absolutely, it's something definitely I picked up on. I mean, I love that aspect of Foggy. He is still loyal to a fault, and I think I've mentioned this before, to Matt Murdock, and also to protecting his alter ego. And yet Matt doesn't seem to consider him. He won't go down to see how he is. He won't just take off the mask and be Foggy's friend. I suspect we won't see any resolution to Foggy and Matt, or indeed maybe even with Karen and Matt in this season. I think this is hopefully something that will push through into a third season. I really do.
But again, they haven't confirmed the third season yet. That's the bit.
I'm just assuming.
We all are, because I'm going, there's so much to tie up. But they haven't confirmed it, and that's...
Remember, season 3 of Daredevil should be the Defenders. He is the lead character, so they will get a loss. There's going to be 13 episodes of the Defenders. Sorry, 6 episodes, isn't it, of the Defenders mini-series. So each of the characters will get their own episodes with their own group of characters. So there has to be some form of resolution with these characters, whether it's at the end of this season or whether it's at the start of Defenders, would be probably most likely.
Yeah, it should be Danny Rand who's the lead character. And actually, I cannot wait for Danny Rand to wisecrack his way around Matt Murdock and Daredevil. Absolutely. He is ripe for the plucking.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Really looking forward to seeing Iron Fist. Definitely.
But I just very quickly, I just close it. I don't think they will. I think what we're going to end is getting some, like, unresolved issues that they'll, like, you can't tie up 3 massive plot points in one episode in Defenders. No, in Defenders.
I know what you mean, yeah.
Because, and then, only then will they decide if... So, we've got Luke, we've got Iron, and we've got then the Defenders. Jessica Jones, season 2.
Jessica Jones 2, yeah.
So, I'd say they're going to hold off announcing until we get closer and closer to some of the others, and then they might say, okay, after the Defenders you're going to get one more season of Jessica, one more season of Luke, one more season of Daredevil and Iron Fist, and then we'll close it down, or we'll make it Defenders 2,
or we'll just keep making the money.
Absolutely.
I think like they're the same with House of Cards. They may not renew it a bit after a few more, like after one more.
After a few more.
No, like
it's
one
gone
more.
Into its that'll be 6 seasons of House of Cards, which only ran for 2 seasons.
But remember,
But
remember, they can spin it out through the Punisher's own.
And the Punisher
now.
Yeah.
So I mean, in terms of that, anything hanging after this season of Daredevil can come in with the Punisher show. There's obviously the Defenders. There's even potentially how integrated they move some of Daredevil's aspects into the Iron Fist. You know, we're talking about the Madame Gao and the Steel Serpent thing, symbol, that was in season 1. But I think before we go down another rabbit hole, Derek, what's your next point?
My next point is a question for this episode, because I don't know whether we've seen something like this before. Is the fight that the Punisher has in the diner, is that the most brutal fight in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I don't know, there was points in this episode that I couldn't watch, and I love horror films. I have no problem with violent films. But the scene when the 2 guys walk into the diner, beautifully shot opening to that, actually, when Castle is sitting beside the window and we're seeing the reflection of the Buick that's coming to kill him effectively in the window. Beautiful shot to start with. It felt like a real brutal 70s crime film, or something like Goodfellas, that kind of thing. But as the guys come in, the first guy's taken out with some non-lethal shots, to the legs, to the arms, to the chest, but nothing that would kill him, no headshots, so that Frank can question him later on. Second guy is stabbed repeatedly in the stomach. And then he goes back to the first guy and smacks him with the butt of the gun until he breaks his cheekbone.
Oh, it's disgusting.
Absolutely brutal stuff that we haven't seen in any of the Marvel shows. I know we've had brutality in Daredevil before. We've had a guy spike himself in the head. We've had a lot of brutality from season 1 all the way through to now. And I know we've talked about the darkness of that brutality for this show. They haven't gone this far before, have they?
No.
This was uncompromising, absolutely. Like the repeated stabbing into, I think, his gut. Even just the repeated shots, which again looked like it was into the guy's gut.
That's right.
At the start. I mean, you see the reaction on Karen's face. She can hear all this stabby, shooty going on, you know, metal on flesh, bullets ripping flesh apart, and you can see her like cowering under the counter going, oh my god. And I mean, her reaction to it at the end is just like fantastic.
Absolutely.
I think, but I mean, definitely, just the repeated stabbing. I mean, there were so many headshots in this episode as well.
Oh god, yeah.
Or potential headshots, and but that caving in of the face with the butt of the handgun was just, it's brutal. And then they focus on like the fact that one of his cheeks is like falling off practically. This was pretty brutal. So brutal.
This is why the Punisher's getting his own show.
Maybe.
This is something you do not see on TV.
Mm-hmm. Maybe Game of Thrones.
Well, no, not even Game of Thrones. Come on, look, this they like Game of Thrones just gives you a decapitation.
Right.
This gave you like mutilation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the difference. And I think, and they did it in a very well filmed way. As you said, cinematography, it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Like the shots were great. Yeah. But my God, yeah, you're right. Like up until this point, they kind of shied away from the direct view of the violence.
Yeah, I do remember a lot more in season 1 when we were doing our podcasts that we had mentioned almost every episode that there is a moment when you look away.
Yeah.
I think you were mentioning that, Chris. It became kind of a running theme of our points during season 1 where it's like, and what was the moment this week that made you look away from the screen? I don't know whether you've had one of those so far in season 2.
The hammer in the kind of first couple ones.
True. But this particular episode, this was like, I don't want to look back at the screen. This is brutal and violent. But I will say, and this is the other side of my point, I will say it was hugely necessary, particularly for the character of Karen. Karen has been on the side of the Punisher the whole time. She's been looking for him to get released from prison. She's been looking for him to get away with it. She does say, I do believe that you belong in prison, at the start of this scene, which I thought was interesting. But she needs to see what the real brutality of Frank Castle is like. Blake Tara mentioned it in the last episode. Oh, you've seen loads of shots of his of the violence that the Punisher's like, but when you're in the center of it, it's much worse than you can imagine. That's the case for Karen here. That's what she's really seeing in this episode. While she did see Reyes gunned down in front of her last week, she knew it wasn't Frank. This time, she sees the real brutality, and here's the real brutality of Frank, and it's important for her character to experience that.
Absolutely. Actually, this leads to one of my points, and I'm just going to nip in here and take it because, like, this was one of the things I really, really enjoyed about this episode was Karen's arc with Frank Castle. You know, she's really been involved trying to initially to say that he maybe shouldn't go to prison, or, you know, that he's not fully responsible for his actions, and I just love the fact that at the start of this episode, Karen is given a way out by Frank Castle in the car, her car. He does say to her that, you know, you can get out now, because she's obviously I'm an accessory. I don't have the attorney-client privilege. This makes me an accessory. Frank says to her, well, you can get out now. You can leave if you want. And she doesn't. She takes on the mantle of trying to help him, trying to find the truth. And it's kind of like I said in the synopsis, she suddenly realizes in that diner just how divergent their agendas are. Whilst Karen would want to seek the truth, whilst she would want to bring the blacksmith to justice, Frank's justice is vengeance and death and violence and killing. He has no place here for the justice that Karen and Daredevil and Foggy look to do. We even see that again, it's echoed on the ship deck with Daredevil, where he says, maybe I want this war. Maybe I want it. It's the only way I can feel like I'm doing something about it. Your way doesn't work. You know, what are we going to do, Red? Take them in. And, you know, he makes it sound as though this is like the fluffy way of doing things. His way is what he wants to do. And, you know, she is essentially used as bait. He uses and abuses her, to get, this situation. You know, he orchestrates it in effect. And she sees that. At the end of it then, once he's like caved in their heads, once she's seen the reality of what he's capable of, you know, he says, call the cops, get into protective custody. And then he goes, get away from this thing, get away from me, stay away from me. Like, that's it. He realizes that he has used her as bait, and he's just saying, leave me. This is not your world. And I love that arc within this episode. I absolutely thought it was fantastic. This to me is, quite frankly, one of the strongest episodes for Karen, in this season so far. And she's been really good throughout. So I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And one of the tiny thing about that scene, I love that as Karen's coming out, the breathing is of Frank Castle is laboured as blood is streaming from his face. I think that's just a beautiful shot in a way of gruesomeness, I know, but it has to be what happens when Frank goes after two guys and takes them out the way he does. He's a brutal character, and it really seems to be taking its toll on him. But I love that his turning point with Karen is, why is she here? She can't be here. She can't be around me. This is what I am. This is what I'm like. And she doesn't seem to know that. So I really like those touches, definitely.
I'm going to dovetail one of my points actually onto this, which is that scene, but just before, where actually one of my favorite scenes was the Punisher giving the wisdom on what love is.
Absolutely.
That was amazing.
You've stolen a second point.
But oh my god, like that was
great,
beautiful,
wasn't it?
Actually, this could be why one of that scene felt a bit more brutal, is because he was like, this man is laying out his heart and it's all lovely and beautiful. Oh wait, he's just shot some guy in the gut 5 times, and oh look at this, stabby.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love absolutely beautiful scene. It started in the car in Ben Ulrich's car, where he's listening to the funk music on the radio.
Do you know who that is?
Who is it?
Earth, Wind and Fire.
Of course it is.
Shining
EWF.
Star.
Yeah, EWF, the funk band from the 70s, an awesome band. But yeah, it starts out with that, where he's in the car listening to the music, and he says to Karen, I used to sing along to this with my wife. Can you imagine me doing that? And as I'm watching it as a viewer, you're going, nope, I can never imagine you having a moment of any kind of happiness. Poor Frank.
Aww.
Yeah, no, I completely am with you here, Chris. I thought this was such a interesting perspective on love, you know, a tad warped.
So yeah, no, my point on this was just how the way he described that feeling of love. It was so weird. It's like, you only love someone if they hurt you. It's a very twisted way of thinking about it, but
definitely
very warped.
It's an interesting way, and I'm like, and he's like, I'd cut off my arm right here. I cut off my left arm right here to feel that
in this restaurant, yeah.
To feel that for one more time, sorry. And also then obviously the point that it turns out Karen does love Matt, but she's totally figuring it out now, which was a bit okay.
Well, she Punisher loves him. Let's call it that.
Yeah, okay.
In Frank's version of the world, someone that breaks your heart, rips it out, stomps on it, destroys it, is the person you should be with. I don't know. I don't know whether I agree with it. Yeah. It's interesting to see his perspective.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. It was such an interesting perspective. It kind of slightly warped. You know, he does say she was ruthless. She will never be able to hurt me again, because only those truly close to you are powerful enough to hurt you in a way that rips you apart. And that's kind of really what he's saying. It's the kind of person who can damage and break them, which is what Karen is saying is what Matt is that, you know, he's that kind of person who will hurt people and damage them because he gets too close, like he is with her. I mean, really, really good. And I think one of the other things as well is maybe it just leads into the fact that while she's listening to this and taking it in, you know, he is still watching. He's always watching, and he's seen the Buick go around the block 3 times, and that realization that this guy can hurt her as well if she's not careful in a different way. I love the fact that he's always got his eye on the mission. It's that military aspect as well that is thrown into this this kind of perspective, weird and twisted as it may seem, on the power of love.
Absolutely. I love how Karen corrects herself. Matt's a person who can really hurt you, really cause you a lot of pain. Not like you, Frank, in a different kind of way. I love how she corrects herself there. But a really interesting take on relationships there from Frank Castle.
So Derek, what's your next point?
For my next point, I'm actually going to bring in my only Easter egg for the episode. And I think it's a nice little touch, just following on from our Civil War discussion last week. I don't know whether you guys noticed this. We've made a mention of it during our Civil War podcast that when going undercover, Steve Rogers wears exactly his same uniform, except in a baseball cap, t-shirt, and a leather jacket. Yeah, so that's his colors: baseball cap, t-shirt, Falcon's alongside him, wearing his colours in a baseball cap and t-shirt. In this episode, Frank Castle, undercover in the cafe or in the diner, he's wearing black baseball cap, black jacket, dark grey t-shirt. So this is now a Marvel Cinematic Universe trait. If they want to go undercover and hide themselves, they put on the colours that they would wear in their standard uniform and just change them into a baseball cap and a jacket. There you go. That's my Easter egg for the episode.
But I'm not trying to destroy it, this theory. But what about Daredevil? He wears a hoodie.
He's got his red specs.
He's got his red specs. It's true. Okay, so yeah, you got away with it. It's okay. The theory still holds true.
I'm not entirely sure that does square the complete the circle, I should say.
Admittedly, Matt Murdock has never been on the run, and nobody knows that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. So Frank Castle's on the run. Yeah. Steve Rogers is on the run. Falcon's on the run, and they wear their undercover outfits, which are the same color as their uniforms. There you go.
So we'll amend your point to when they're on the run. And then it makes sense. Yeah, okay, I agree then.
So I'll amend my point in editing.
Okay.
Joking. Chris, do you want to give us your next point?
Okay, it was pretty cool to see the hand ninjas scaling the side of the building.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, that's cool. And it was practical effects, which I thought was even nicer.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This was the first mid-air rescue we've seen.
Was amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Like, I think this is the first one we've seen in any Marvel property.
That's true, except for Spider-Man. That's the only one I can think of in my head was Spider-Man. I know that's not MCU, but that's the only mid-air kind of rescue that we've ever seen in the cinematic universe. But I loved that scene.
Hulk in Avengers Assemble.
Hulk rescuing Iron Man from the fall from space. Yes.
Yes. There you go. Okay, but in the MCU TV side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think this is the first.
And it's a different kind of rescue because he's jumping out of the window after her, whereas Hulk is intercepting.
Yeah.
Got another one. Ward rescuing Simmons as she falls out of the bus on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I don't remember
Season 1, episode 4 or 5.
Okay.
Oh, that was when no one liked Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's why you remember it.
There you go. Well, Fitz was trying to put on his parachute. Ward steals it from him and jumps out of the plane after Simmons, causing the whole relationship to break down between Fitz and Simmons.
Oh, damn it.
Anyway, that's
damn it.
fans.
Anyway,
you'll remember that.
Okay, but he wasn't swinging off a rope.
No, he wasn't. It was an awesome superhero moment for Daredevil. I'll definitely say
that. Which actually leads me to my point, though.
Mm-hmm.
We don't actually see enough of Daredevil swinging or being acrobatic.
That is true, actually. Even Lego Daredevil swings around with his billy club.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In Lego New York.
His fight style, I understand. So his dad was the boxer, and that's where we're getting more of it. He was trained by Stick and the cast, so he should have a bit more of a kung fu element. Mm-hmm. But he's still got that very boxery movement at the moment. But it's slowly moving. But that's just the thing. When he did that mid-air dive, I was like, why aren't you doing that more often? Why aren't you swinging from rooftops right now?
And you've kind of caught glimpses of that. Like when he scaled up the rail cars with Elektra, it was kind of that kind of running.
Yes.
And in fact, I think when he was Matt Murdock and he was kind of putting his stick away and chasing after becoming Daredevil, he like flicks himself through some railings and all this kind of stuff. But I think, we've not seen the parkour Daredevil as much as we should do.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I'm with you on that.
Good call, Chris. Good call.
There you go. So that's my point.
And I've got one that's in that scene as well. Claire Temple kills someone.
Oh, yeah!
Pushes one of the hand out of a 4th-story window. Awesome moment, by the way. I just think that in this episode, Claire Temple has now entered the Marvel universe, much more so than she has in any of the other shows and appearances that she's done before. She's always been the person on the street that talks to the characters. In this episode, she gets to meet the Hand. I think she's the only one that survives that encounter with the Hand. So she's now seen the other side of the Marvel universe. She sees obviously the body of one of the Hand that's had the autopsy before and has been brought back to life. Matt explains the whole situation and talks about all that crazy shit that the Hand are into and are dealing with. So she knows the whole story now. She's been brought into the universe. In the past, she's kind of been treating our heroes when they've been damaged or taking care of them. But she kind of gets a bit of the story. This is the first time we've seen her in a perilous situation, and very perilous. She'd been surrounded by ninjas. If Matt hadn't arrived when he arrived, unfortunately, she would have gone the way of Luisa Delgado, the head nurse that we've seen a number of episodes of Daredevil.
R.I.P. Louisa.
Absolutely. But yeah, I kind of like this for this episode that we're bringing her in to the MCU. She's now left her job as well.
Yeah.
She's going to be in Luke Cage. Will she now commit full time to take care of our superheroes in the
be
in
the
universe?
actual night nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume this is how they brought her, they're bringing her into the fold. She's off to Harlem now. Some point over one of the MCUs, I think she mentioned Harlem. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming...
I can't quite remember, but we will check it after this episode.
We would need to, because then... So I know, okay, listeners, if she didn't, you can yell at me there. But I think this is how she gets to Harlem, to Luke Cage. So she goes back now, maybe to live or to visit family. So I think she doesn't live, she lives in Hell's Kitchen. But she works in Hell's Kitchen, so it's probably family. I don't remember. She mentioned Harlem at some point, or I'm making this up in my head. But that's how she goes back there.
She will make some move. It is one of the boroughs, so it's not that far away from New York. So, I was just intrigued to see the fact that she's been incorporated into the storyline much more. She's not just a sounding board now. She's actually seen some of the stuff that Daredevil has to deal with.
Did I say she had a moral code as she pushes someone else?
I know, yeah.
Well, for good people, she does.
Yes, but that guy...
She was defending herself,
exactly.
In all honesty.
But that guy has probably died and come back from the dead before, so she's just...
Is he the guy with the Y cut incision?
Doesn't explicitly say it. It's definitely one of the hand that was taken out. We don't know whether it was taken out by Claire Temple or one of the ones that was taken out by Daredevil.
But he's dead again, so I would say he's probably... Because Daredevil was just beating on them. They would be knocked out, I think. So I reckon it's the Claire Temple the one that's shoved out the window. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that would make sense. Actually, sorry, one thing about that. When the hand ninja is opening up the window using that kind of, the device that makes a circle. Yeah. So he does that, reaches his hand in, and I was like, oh, he's being all crafty and sneaky. And then he just puts it over his shoulder and lets go, and you hear the glass smash. And I'm like... Not so sneaky, did you? I was like, sorry, it was a random thing. It was like, they're scaling really quietly, and it's just that no one can hear us, no one can see us. He cuts in, rather than break the window, he cuts it, and he puts his hand in, opens the window, and then he takes that piece of glass and just drops it randomly over his shoulder.
Nice catch, Chris. Nice catch. John, do you want to give us your next point?
Yes, we have the unexpected ally to Daredevil and the return of Madame Gao. It is now so freaking weird in New York that she's left her tea behind and she's swigging whiskey. She's moved on to the hard stuff. She's on hard liquor, and she's swigging back the whiskey. Things have gotten so crazy. I love seeing Madame Gao back in. It was a bit of a shame, I think, that given we saw the steel serpent symbol on her drugs, it would have been nice to have found a bit more about where she had been. I mean, we at least assumed she had left New York after she parted ways with Wilson Fisk in season 1, but she says here that maybe she never left. I loved just how she's now sees Daredevil. And she sees how he's incorporated the devil of Hell's Kitchen into his armor, and she too, like Claire and Karen, has an opinion about him that, you continue your battle, but at what price to you? She's giving judgment on him as well. And he does have that closing remark as he leaves that is kind of slightly exasperated from Matt Murdock. But I love the fact that these two, come together in this way, that despite the drugs, the money laundering and the slavery, Daredevil goes, isn't that enough? They come together to fight this ghost, this elusive blacksmith, whoever he might be, who is like taking out and taking down her interests, the chemists, the street sellers. But I think the other great thing that links into this, like Stick, she says, but you still don't understand the real threat facing this city. So what is that? Is this what's in the urn? Is it Black Sky, as Stick is talking about, or we think is talking about, or is she talking about then more bad shit that's coming down the line, more bad stuff? But I love the fact that she really questions his perspective on what is the real threat to Hell's Kitchen.
I also love that she has no fear in this of Daredevil. You know, she sends away her goons. There's no mention made in this episode of the fact that she kicked his ass last time that they battled each other. You know, I like that. But I that's obviously the reason why she has no fear of Daredevil. She knows she can take him out in a second. This was a bit of a weird one. I was pretty excited to see Madame Gao back in this episode. And this is what we talked about last episode. There was no season 2 confirmed when that was written, and when that episode was done, they were leading into the Defenders. The episode had her saying goodbye to Owlsley, saying she's going away to a place a lot further than China, is what she says to him. We now got a season 2. We had to kind of bring Madame Gao back. So that whole thing that we had talked about, or the speculation that we talked about, that she was going off to the other realm, where Iron Fist
other
was.
city. Yeah, exactly.
That kind of stuff. That obviously had to be taken away, and maybe she'll have to go again and say the same kind of thing at the end of this season to set her up for possibly being in Defenders. But I was excited to see her back, but I felt it was a bit of a pity that we aren't getting some kind of revelation about where she actually was, especially when she tells Matt, maybe I was here all along. Well, we know you weren't. We know you were somewhere else. Where were you?
I think that's what I mean. It's really good to see her back, but have they undercut what they did in season 1 a bit? Because some further exploration as to exactly where she went, even if it's got multiple different meanings and you can interpret it like different ways, the fact that she doesn't really explain a bit more about the fact that even if, well, I'm back, things had to be attended to because of this blacksmith. Yeah. You know, this is an important market for my drugs.
Well, the only thing she says is that New York isn't her only market. That's kind of the only thing she says.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, for me, I loved seeing Madame Gao back. Absolutely. I loved her interaction with Daredevil, but I wish they had attended more to her character directly and where she had been and why she was back in New York, rather than simply say, oh, maybe I hadn't gone away. Maybe I was here all along. I mean, that to me is a bit, but I love the fact that she's here. It just keeps that continuity in the same way with Wilson Fisk coming back in.
So on Madame Gao, I kind of agree with both of you. It was a nice treat that she turned up. It's just, yeah, it felt out of sync very much in that she's in and then she's gone. Well, I assume she's gone. Well, we assume. Like I don't think she's gonna come in now and fight Stick or no, but I don't think she's gonna. I think that was basically she was there just to. She was a plot device just to take the plot a bit further. I don't mind too much about like where she was and stuff because we know she's coming in Iron Fist, so that's fine. We assume she's coming in Iron Fist because of the Steel Serpent Society, etc., etc., etc. She is that kind of link. Again, we have to remember in season 1, they were tying everything down.
Absolutely. And
they were just, okay, we'll bring her back every now and again. In other words, they'll bring her back for Luke Cage. They didn't expect to have a season 2, so I'd say that's literally where it was. It was like, no, we need someone who's going to be her rival. Oh, we've got a drug dealing grandma right there. Let's bring her back.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely, and that is exactly how it felt. I do love seeing her back, though. Really, really good to see her. But yeah, I kind of would like a little bit of the explanation as to where she's been, some other connection. But yeah, it was cool to have her in there, and she does still have a great presence in the show, I must say.
It's like they had with Melvin, you know, where he does say, "Well, you're protecting me. You know, stop coming back here." Right at the start, as he gets his new suit, like. Again, it's just a small little entry back into season 2 for Melvin, but there is a little bit of history as to what's been happening.
Oh, absolutely.
And that was just the one thing that was missing here.
Well, I think she said, I never what made you think I left?
Yeah, but we know she left as the audience.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's all I meant. We know she told little Leslie, that she was leaving.
She could have been lying. I know old ladies lie quite a lot.
On that point, Chris, do you want to give us your final point?
Yeah, this is a quick one, guys, and I just want to we're going down a rabbit hole. The guy on the pier said hello, Castle.
He did.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah. I thought he was Spike from Buffy.
Oh.
But I don't think it was.
It wasn't, no.
That would be a cool cameo.
The
That'd be an amazing cameo. Who the hell? What? Huh?
They definitely know him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it military then?
Very possibly. I know we've speculated a lot. Possibly Will Simpson from Jessica Jones and Frank Castle, and whether it's that military group that took him away, as to whether they are the ones that are going after Frank Castle. I thought this was this is quite interesting, that potentially that is the other group here, Blacksmith's group, effectively could have been the men in suits that we saw earlier on in the season. They could have always been after Castle to try and take him out, as well as Reyes. So maybe we didn't get the whole story wrapped up in the last episode when Reyes explained her involvement.
Exactly. But again, this for me is just like, oh no, don't wrap up this arc now. They can't. I'm like, you just basically killed everyone on the pier. And there's no one to investigate. But, we know Frank is alive. But, in theory, everyone thinks he's burning to death in the middle of a heroin ship. Mm-hmm. So I'm just kind of don't...
That's a good way to get him out of being followed, though, isn't it?
Wait, they think he's dead. Everyone thinks he's dead.
Just cover his tracks.
Yeah, definitely.
But I just want to know, did he hear that? Did Daredevil hear that from underwater? I'm curious. Again, it's another. I don't want this to be a loose thread.
Yeah. No, interesting. We may find that out in the next couple of episodes. Definitely an interesting one. We may get to see a little bit more of that in the next couple of episodes.
But do you reckon then that these guys that sort of surrounded the ship, so there's 2 points here. Do you think they know Frank Castle from the Carousel Massacre, or maybe just because? It kind of occurred to me that they know him from another time, so therefore it's the military, that it's a knowledge for that reason. And the second thing is, do you think that the guy in the ship, is it that kind of the blacksmith hiding in plain sight? Or, I mean, I know Daredevil kind of really said, no, it's not, but maybe he's good enough to sort of cover his tracks, both with his own beating heart, as well as really surviving that encounter with the Punisher, because he calls these guys back.
He does, yeah. No, I have no doubt that wasn't the blacksmith. It
just thought I'd put it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like it because it was actually just a note that I'd taken, which I'll just bring in here. I love that this bit with Frank is a commentary on the fact that using his methods can make you go after the wrong person. So the method that Frank uses is threatening, it's violence, it's beating until you get a confession out of somebody. So in this case, it's saying if Frank beats anybody hard enough, they'll confess to anything that he wants them to. So this guy is confessing to being the one that murdered Frank's wife and that he's the blacksmith. And it turns out when Daredevil is hearing his heartbeat, the guy's lying. So this is saying that Frank's methods are the wrong methods to use. Just in that simple scene, just before the conversation that Daredevil and Frank are having about whether they should go and use Frank's methods in future. So it's a nice little touch in the episode, and really well written moment to say Frank's methods are wrong. He can just beat people and get the confession out of the wrong person.
The other thought I've just wondered about is that Madame Gao is saying that this is the purest form of heroin she's seen, and it's kind of, is it someone from his past, because he was stationed in Afghanistan, which is in the real world notorious for opium.
Interesting.
It's a huge
the general.
But that's what I mean. Is it or someone from that whole incident?
Oh, that's
maybe
where the rescue.
So that's how they could make the stick not be the blacksmith, not be Stick. Mm-hmm. The blacksmith is the general who we saw on the stand in the courtroom.
Mm-hmm. I didn't necessarily think that, but I wondered whether it was someone maybe from that rescue, or maybe even the people fighting him.
I love these points of speculation this late in the series. It's great.
Or it could be the general.
Still 2 episodes left to go. Really good. Really good that there's loads of options available to us. I've got one more point left before we decide whether we defend the episode or not. And it has to be about Stick and Elektra at the end of this episode. Just want to say I love the choice here where Stick stands up, gets himself prepared for the attack that he knows is coming from Elektra, and tells his 2 guys, I need you to go because when she comes to kill me, I need someone to keep our plan going. And she kills them first. I thought that was a great little choice. She stabs them both through the back in the car as they're about to leave. Thought it was a great little choice. I don't know why, it just made me laugh. And then the car drive across the city to Matt's apartment is hilarious because I honestly thought Stick, since he'd lost his driver, had hopped in the car and tried to drive across the city. That's worse driving than I would do, to be honest. But it is a really funny scene in its own way as Matt's listening to what's going on outside his apartment. And hearing the guys crash their way across the city. But yeah, we've got a big standoff coming between Elektra and Stick.
Absolutely.
Really interesting to see if there's more going to be given about the backstory of Elektra next episode as this standoff happens between the two of them.
We need to talk. I'm all rabbit ears. Indeed. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what happens between Stick and Elektra. So that, I think, should helpfully expand sort of this threat that's occurring, really, where Elektra's loyalties lie. Is she actually the Hand? Is she part of the Hand who's infiltrated the Chaste rather than being totally aligned with Stick? So this will be really interesting, I think, to find out something here.
It's one of those intriguing ones. It's probably one of the biggest storylines for Elektra that most Daredevil fans know, is probably that she has died and come back in the past. I'm intrigued to see which character they've taken for Netflix, whether they've taken her before she died and maybe resurrected in the future, or potentially this is an Elektra that has already been resurrected by the Hand. I'm intrigued to find that out.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
But maybe not resurrected by the Hand, maybe resurrected by the cast.
Just purely because it's the Hand that seem to know about resurrection much more.
Yeah.
That seems to be where the storyline is coming from. It's the Hand that know resurrection, and the cast are trying to stop them resurrecting all their bad guys, kind of thing. So, so it'll be interesting to see if that's the tack they take on it. But that's my final point about the episode. I think it's time to get into notes.
I think it is.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have any notes?
I do. Foggy Bear. I love seeing Marcy Stoll come back. She talks about him being a sensitive person, and that's what she loves about him. And that, actually really starts to big him up about, okay, they lost the case. From Foggy's perspective, it was a complete train smash, but that people are starting to talk about his opening of this case, and that actually the case only floundered because of, crazy Frank Castle going AWOL on the stand. And I love the fact that potentially setting up of a meeting, will this be Jerry Hogarth, or at least her firm?
Yeah.
So that's a cool little cross
cool,
over.
Yeah, I really like that idea.
And I must say, I'm really liking Marcy Stoll every time she just pops into the episodes or this season with Foggy. It's nice to see that Foggy has got this kind of companion, and I hope to see more of them together. And of course, she brings him some more whiskey. As I say, they're all getting drunk. Things have gone to shit so badly in Hell's Kitchen.
Absolutely.
That it's like it's whiskey time. In terms of Whiskey Watch, I don't know what brand it was, but it was in a flag, and no doubt it's just necked under the bed covers in the hospital.
Speaking of getting drunk, I did like Foggy's comment to her that bad things happen in threes. First I lose the case, then I get shot. Next, I'll be told that Josie's bar is burnt down. I love that that's the first place it goes to. It's not like a family member will die. It's that Josie's bar will burn down, Yeah, really cool to see Marcy back in this episode.
Didn't he always say that Marcy was bad for him?
Yes.
So that's what I'm kind of going,
But maybe he subscribes to the Frank Castle version of love, Chris.
Oh my God. Frank Castle writes a book on love, like a love book. That would be amazing. It'd be like Twilight, but actually horror.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like the vampires actually eat you.
Be less sparkle and more glistening from
blood.
Fresh blood.
Yeah, exactly.
I've just got a couple of little notes about the episode myself. Did anybody find that comment from Matt pretty weird when he's talking to Madame Gao, where he says, I could get 100 cops here in an hour?
Yeah.
Like an hour to get 100 cops in the middle of New York to a place in New York. That just seems like really, really poor police response time to me. I don't know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but it's 100.
But in an hour, it's not like, I could have them here in 3 minutes. She's like, I could clear out my whole operation in an hour before the cops arrive.
But
that's
a
fine.
bit, the hour, I didn't think about the 100 cops part, but I just said, I can have someone here in an hour. I'm like, all right, yeah, okay, go for it. Like, not really a threat. I'm like,
yeah, I can have them here in 3 days, maybe, if there's nothing else going on.
And if you file out the paperwork, you know,
exactly.
With one letter, he's able to stop Vanessa coming back, but it's going to take him an hour to get other people.
Exactly. Another note for the episode: a great touch when the discussion between Matt and Frank about whether Daredevil will use Frank's methods. Did you notice he blessed himself before saying he would agree with Frank's methods in future?
Oh, yeah.
That's a great little moment. Just to keep the character tied into the Catholicism that he does still believe in. So a nice little touch there.
I thought that was a bit cheesy, personally. But anyway, that's just me.
I'd just expect that from the character of Matt Murdock.
I just thought that was a bit cheesy. I think every time he hits people, you know, that he would do the same kind of thing because he's hurting one of God's innocent creatures. Like, so I found that slightly cheesy, I have to say. It's like, I did take one of the best comedy taxi drives from Dublin Airport once, where the taxi driver kept blessing himself every time he swore or passed comment about people on the side of the road. That was hilarious. This seems slightly out of sync with the scene for me.
Okay. I don't know, it just reminds me of things that my mom would say. It's like, oh, bless me and forgive me for saying this, but it's kind of it's a really Irish Catholic, maybe. That's why I've got it in my head, but it's a really Irish Catholic way of doing things. You kind of go, well, I'm about to say something awful, let me just bless myself before I say it, kind of thing. But nice little touch there for me. Final one for me is the major anonymous donation to the hospital that silences what actually happened with the Hand attack. Really interesting. Is this the fact that the Hand have huge resources? Have they bought off the administration of the hospital here so they'll cover it up? Is it somebody else that has an interest in keeping this quiet? I just thought that was a really interesting little comment in the background there.
Yeah. So on that note, Chris, do you defend this episode of Daredevil?
I do. I do. I do. 380 brought the Punisher and Daredevil kind of back together for the first time since episode 4, if you want to say that.
That's true.
That's right, yeah.
It answered some of the questions that we had from the last episode, such as like who... It was the Blacksmith and not Fisk who was behind the framing of the Punisher. So we knew that.
That's true.
But what stood out most with the Punisher's kind of moments of wisdom for me, which I thought, like, and that, especially in the stark contrast of, like, 3 minutes later, he was brutally stabbing someone and throwing hot water over them. It was interesting. And then, this... I'm calling it, but the potential, the really interesting Blacksmith reveal that we think it might be, who I think it might be. Because that's a great way of tying Matt, Frank, Elektra, and the Hand all together into one person. But anyway, I defend this episode, and I'm quite interested. It's 2 episodes left. I really want to just binge them and go, yay! I get to know all the answers.
Tough, Chris.
Don't we all, Chris? Don't we all? And watch Penny Dreadful.
Oh, because it's dreadfully great.
It is.
But so I defend this episode. So Derek, you have to fill me in and tell me, do you defend this episode of Daredevil?
I really, really defend this episode of Daredevil. I don't know what it is, just that brutality of the Punisher in this episode. Really thought it was necessary to see that side of the character. Seeing stuff other than, well, my kids and my wife were killed at the carousel attack. Seeing some other kind of backstory to Frank Castle was really important to me in this episode. And also seeing him pushing away Karen just simply by doing what he does and killing the people around him brutally was enough in this episode to keep me really interested in seeing what happens for the next 2 episodes. But there's loads more. Obviously, having Madame Gao back in the city, kind of cool. Just having that connection again. Seeing Stacy back, very cool again. Poor little Foggy Bear sitting on his own in hospital. But really enjoyed that too. But again, another great development for Claire Temple and her character being brought into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, leaving her job in the hospital. Very cool. And again, we got ninjas. What more do we want?
Yeah. Ninjas make everything better. They really do.
They really do. John, do you defend this episode of Daredevil?
I do defend this episode of Daredevil. I do. I have to say, on first watch, I kind of thought I wouldn't, or I would be borderline. But I did watch it a second time, and actually I got a lot more out of it. And that's why I would give it 4 flaming heroin packs concealed in a foggy bear out of 5. In terms of the whole intrigue for me about who this Blacksmith is. Again, like Chris, you have Daredevil and the Punisher going toe to toe, head to head. Again, I love the ladies in this episode, Claire, Karen, and the return of Madame Gao. All from me really just chimed nicely. In the same way that Chris said, the interesting and weird, and twisted perspective on love that the Punisher gives. I think that Karen's realization of exactly who the Punisher is, really, really good. And again, all kind of, teeing it up for these last 2. And, it'll be interesting to see where they go. But certainly the intrigue about who the Blacksmith is, and will we see, maybe Bullseye as well. Overall I'd defend this episode of Daredevil.
Well, thanks very much for joining us for this episode of Defenders TV Podcast, listeners. Really good to, as always, talk to you about the episode. We've got 2 more episodes to go in this season of Daredevil. And after that, we're obviously going to be leading up to Luke Cage and obviously Doctor Strange coming in October. If you want to share your thoughts about this episode or any episodes of our podcast, just send us feedback to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com, or join us over on our Facebook group. Just go to facebook.com/groups/defenderstvpodcast. You can always subscribe to the podcast by going through our iTunes link, which is defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes, or just search for us on iTunes at Defenders TV Podcast, or any good or evil podcast catcher. Just search for Defenders TV Podcast. Great to have you with us again this week. Unfortunately, sad news about Agent Carter, but we will be back next time with our second last episode of Daredevil Season 2.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. We hope you've been all rabbit ears as well for this episode. Been great chatting again, and we'll speak to you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.
And seriously, thanks guys, and keep all any theories that you have and that potentially could be true. And now that we don't have Agent Carter or Most Wanted, what would you like to see?
Doctor Strange leading to October 2016.
I know everything leads to Doctor Strange, but if you couldn't see Doctor Strange,
then the trailer for Doctor Strange.
All right.
And maybe, listeners, what would you like us to cover after Doctor Strange and Luke Cage are finished?
Penny Dreadful.
On that note, thanks so much for listening, guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye. This was one of the things I absolutely loved about this episode was Karen's arc with Frank Castle. I really.
I'm here.
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry,
I'm trying to put my sock on while listening at the same time because my feet.
I'm just wondering, were you okay?
My feet got cold, and I'm like, okay, I'm listening.
What with the screaming in the last episode, and now this episode, it's all gone quiet from Chris.
This is really
just past 8. Do we continue podcasting or not?
If I ever do, I come back. It's fine.
Okay.
Keeps that continuity in the same way with Wilson Fisk coming back in, the same way with Naboo. It's a great kind of continuity.
Yes, that planet from Star Wars is back again.
I mean Naboo.
Nobu.
Okay, Nobu.
Jesus, Naboo. I mean Naboo. Oh God,
Naboo. Naboo. Where Padme's from?
Well, look, it's Disney. We'll have Mickey Mouse coming in sniffing drugs soon. Like, it's so connected.
All right, that's good.
And it's the same with Naboo being here as well.
Naboo.
No, I said.
You said that.
And it's the same thing with Naboo being here as well.
Yeah, I know we speculated a lot about there being the connection there with, why do I forget his name every time? From Jessica Jones.
Kilgrave.
No. The guy who we thought was Punisher of Jessica Jones.
Nuke.
Patriot.
Nuke. Patriot. That's it. Oh, that's not even DC or Marvel. That's Rising Stars.
2000 AD.
We had Iron Patriot.
No, okay.
Fleshy Patriot.
I know you said Nuke, and you always say Nuke, and I'm trying to think of the actual name of the character.
Officer
Will Thompson.
Bill Thompson.
Thompson?
Not Thompson.
Simpson.
Will
Simpson.
Officer Simpson. Da, 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 da.